Hello, and welcome to this section on prototype design pattern. This video is part of a 20 hours Udemy course where we cover hundreds of real-world design pattern scenarios. The prototype design pattern is a creational pattern that creates new object by copying existing objects rather than creating new objects from scratch. This can be used when creating new object is computationally expensive or when creating new object requires a lot of complex configuration. The prototype pattern involves creating a prototype object and then making copies of that object as needed. Hello and welcome back. Let's take an example of using prototype design pattern for creating web pages. A website may have a number of pages that share a common layout and design, such as the header, the footer, and navigation menu. Instead of creating each page from scratch, a prototype page can be created with the common elements, and then copies of that pages can be made as needed, each with its own unique content. Let's take a look at how to do that with the prototype pattern. If you remember our last example, the first thing to do when creating a prototype is to have the object you want to duplicate, the object you want to do prototyping on. So you have the object prototype, you have the prototype class as the prototype engine that has objects that you want to prototype. And then also you have the register object, unregister object, and the clone method. This is the template we will use to create the web page example. Let's start by creating the object prototype, and that will be our web page. That's the object we want to create again and again. Let me put import here as we did the other time to help me do the cloning. Now let's go to the prototype engine, the prototype class. I'm going to call the object pages, or just call it page. That is a dictionary, an empty dictionary. Now to register every instance, what I'll do is I'm going to say self underscore page, and that will take in the object. And of course I have to specify the key, which is the name. And also to unregister it, I'm just going to do delete self dot underscore page. What are you deleting? Deleting the name. So here I register any object created, and here I delete that object. Now to create the clone, I'm going to call, to make it more intuitive, I'm going to call this register page, and then unregister page, and then I will call the clone create page. This is where you create the different pages. The page, the object that will be created, I'm going to call it web page, and then I'm going to do a copy of that object, deep copy that object, and use the get method to take the specific object that I want to deep copy. If there is no object here, it's going to return none. Let's do web page. Let's update the dictionary value, that is all the variables that are attached to the object, the pages. We have updates, and then let me make this contents. These are all the contents. So I'll call this contents, and then I'll return the web page. So right here we have the engine created. Let's go back to creating the web page. The first thing I'm going to do is to initialize the web page and create a header. Call that none. I'll create contents or body. Let's say contents, call that none, and then also create a footer and store none in there. Then I'm going to create a method that returns a page. And that method returns a literal string containing self.header and the footer, the header, the contents, and the footer. Yeah, this is basically the web page. Where you create a web page, when you call the page method, it returns the web page. But I want to make it a little bit more flexible web page. I would like for the contents to be not just one variable. I want the contents to have, multiple content. Maybe I would like to create different paragraphs. So I don't want it to be just one content. Well, this is out of the scope of this class, but it's a simple way to do that. I'm going to say define contents. Yeah, I'm going to take this out. I'm going to make it a method. And then I'll return the content of the dictionary, the header and footer, and whatever thing that will be in between. I would do the methods to create all the other variables that will be in between. But right here, to get the content, which was content here, which was none, what I'll do is I'll say use the join and then create the web page I'm accessing the objects and getting all the items in the object, but I want it to remove all the header, because I've already specified the header, and then remove the footers from it. So this get everything in between here. For instance, I have say self the paragraph, which has some content in there, self the people, which has some content in there. So basically the headers and the footers are always the same thing. So I'm just trying to create a way in which we can flexibly get all that data out. So I'm going to delete this, and to do that I'll just say set the pages. That is how to create all those middle pages, which will contain the type of content and then the content itself. This is just creating the object, and then I will set the attributes to the type of content and then the content. So technically, this is what needs to be created, the object that needs to be created, and this is the prototype that does the creation. Now let's create an instance of the web page. I want to make that the home page, so I'll say web page. Now I have that instance, and if you want to see the content of this instance, you can come and look at the dondedict method of the instance. Let's run the dondedict, and right here you will see it has header is none, footer is none. This is because that's what we declared here. We have the header and the footer being none. If we want to put stuff in the header, I'm going to come here and say home dot set page. I'll say that should be a header, and then I'm just going to do let's say home header. All right. So if you check this out now and I run the code, you will see header now has home header as its content, while footer has nothing. So I can do for footer too, footer, and say home footer, so that footer too can have content and not none. This is home footer. Now, the beauty of this is that now I can also create more contents. I can come in here and create for another home and say introduction. Let me use a copy of this. Will be home intro. So if you run these again, you will see there is header, there is footer, and there is introduction. There is home intro. There is a key for introduction. So you can have different stuff there. If you look at the Dunderdix here, it's going to show you that each of these items, the keys are created: introduction, management, product keys. On a usual web page, is the header will be the first, the footer will be the last. Every other part should be in the content. That's why we used the content method to create the contents, to create more like creating the content here. So we can have several contents being created. You can actually use the page method to print out the header, the content, and the footer. So if you print this out now, you're going to have home.page should print out. It printed out the header, and then it printed out method address. That means we should have added a bracket here so that it can print out the real content. Let's do that again. Okay, right now you can see, let's divide it. After the asterisk, after this, you have the home page. So we have the header, and then every other thing, the management, the product list, then the last part is the footer. So having done that, we can also create another page from the home page we just created. Let's use the prototype method to clone this home page. Now that we have a home page, the prototype method. Okay, let me change this to page maker. That's the name of the prototype method. Instead of using prototype method, I'm just going to call it page maker. Let's call it PM, and that will be page maker. And then we register the page maker, register a page, call the page home. That's the home page. And then, of course, put the home object. So the PM is registered. Now, if I want to clone the objects to create another page, all I'll do is say PM create page. The create page is the clone, and then I will be creating the page from the home, and I'm going to store that to about us. Let's just say about. So now a new page is created using the create page. A new page will be created. You remember, I can also specify initial contents here. The create page allows me to specify initial content. So what I can do is change the header, about header, change the footer, about footer. Now let me print out the about us information. I'm going to print about page. So when I run this right here, you will see the about page now has the header being the about header. It has all the intros, the product list, management stuff that already is part of the initial page. And then the footer also was changed. So right here, I'm using the prototype methods to clone the About Us page, still having the same templates, having all the other content that I want to sustain. I can come here and also still use the set page for the About Us and maybe change the management content to About Us management. So we have the About Us management here. But what is important to note is the page maker allows us to clone the web page that we just did. You can implement your own web page in your own way and use this page maker, which is actually the prototype engine, the prototype class, to duplicate or clone. This is where we did the cloning. We registered the object that we want, and then we cloned it here into the About Us page. And then, of course, if you want to clone the About Us page, you just do the same thing. You register it, and then you also clone it. You can have several registered pages and then clone them in different pages or different locations or sections that you want. This is this for web page creation using the prototype design pattern. This video is part of a 20 hours Udemy course where we cover hundreds of real-world design pattern scenarios. The course is called Design Pattern in Python with Real-World Code Examples. We showed via practical coding how design pattern is implemented in real-world scenarios like event manager, catch, database connection codes, document management code, creating optimized configuration settings, login frameworks, GUI framework codes, plugin systems, game development codes, payment gateway, document generators, computer graphics generation codes, financial model code pattern, resource pooling, object pooling in ORMs, website creation, database query codes, language translator, web application framework creation, banking system codes, organizational chart creation, file system, interpreter, menu system, text formatting code, authentication code, authorization code, API for OS, document management system, create proxies, event handling, middleware in web development, workflow system, undo redo functionality in apps, job scheduler scenarios, parsers, chart applications, drawing applications, notification system, distributed system, booking system, workflow management system, sorting algorithm, file compression utility, and many more. If you are really serious about your career in programming, you have to get this video. And you don't have to be a Python programmer to use it. Use the link in the description to get the best price for this course on the Udemy platform.